Okay, so we all know this movie right here, Roger Rabbit, one of the most successful films of all time, one of the greatest animated movies ever, and also one of the first films that mastered the art of putting 2D animation with live action. But why didn't it get a sequel? What I mean by that is the first Roger Rabbit was a really big hit. It made $352 million on a budget of $51 million and was also the second highest grossing movie the year it came out behind only Rain Man. The end of the day, Roger Rabbit was a movie mainly produced by Disney, and Disney has never shied away from doing sequels before and basically milking something to death, so it's very strange they didn't do that for Roger Rabbit when they made so much money from it. One of the biggest reasons is this right here, rights, where probably the most famous scene in the movie is Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on screen together because that's only happened one time in the history of movies, and it was this one right here. But it was actually a really difficult thing for Warner Brothers to agree to the deal with Disney because they made it so that Bugs Bunny had to be on screen the exact same amount of time as Mickey Mouse and also get the exact same amount of words. Those rights would actually get a lot more complex for the idea for the Roger Rabbit sequel, which was meant to be a prequel during World War II, where the idea was Roger Rabbit's going to look for his long-lost father, and at the end of the movie, it would reveal it was actually Bugs Bunny. So doing that is kind of difficult because it is a Disney movie, but they'd rely heavily on a Warner Brothers character, and at the same time, there'd be all these restrictions, so they'd probably have to put Mickey Mouse in a lot more as well. That would also violate a lot of Disney's rules for how they treat things in-house, where they have something called the No Mickey rule, which means Mickey Mouse really can't appear in any project as a side character because Mickey Mouse is supposed to be the mascot, and that's why in something like DuckTales, Mickey Mouse only appears as the point of being a melon head as a joke. Disney was also pretty weirded out by Robert Zemeckis' idea for a Roger Rabbit prequel movie because it was supposed to be set in World War II. So basically, this idea is that there's this war that ended 3% of the global population and had all of these things move around, but somehow Roger Rabbit is actually canon to that war. Robert Zemeckis also came out saying Disney really hates Jessica Rabbit, where they don't want her mentioned in any of the theme parks, they don't really want her mentioned as a Disney character, and that's actually part of the reason Disney has always tried to ignore Roger Rabbit as a Disney property. And there was also one scene in the original cut for Roger Rabbit where Jessica Rabbit's blank was showing. There's also the issue that Disney really loves to own their properties. That's why they always tend to buy out things outright, like Winnie the Pooh, Marvel, Pixar. They have to own it, they have to control it. But Roger Rabbit, they never had full control of because Robert Zemeckis' company does have some control over Roger Rabbit. At the same time, there's this guy right here, Gary Wolf, who wrote the book, who also owned a lot of the intellectual property. The problem there was Gary Wolf got Disney to agree to a 30-year rights deal where Disney can do whatever they wanted with Roger Rabbit for 30 years, but at the end of that time period would all go back to Gary Wolf. So basically, if Disney does more movies too and boosts the value of the character, Gary Wolf would end up with something more valuable, and that's why Gary Wolf just got the rights back recently. Yeah, we're probably never going to get a Roger Rabbit sequel, and I think that's actually a good thing because that's one of those movies that should just stay in the Hall of Time. Not everything needs a sequel, not everything needs a prequel, not everything needs a spin-off, and I'm happier with the situation it is right now where people who like the franchise can read the books, but we just have one great movie. With that, I'm Charles Sproul. Subscribe to learn something.